Hello, my name is Leanna. The culture that I chose to do my presentation on is Pacific Island culture, specifically Chamorro culture, which is a subculture of Pacific Islanders. The person I chose to interview is my boyfriend. His name is Jake. He is Chamorro, half Chamorro and half Filipino. My understanding of this culture is pretty much limited to like what I've learned through him. Pacific Island culture in general is limited to what I've seen in movies, heard from friends growing up, things like that, or like what I see in the media. As I go through my articles, I kind of talk about the things that I discussed with Jake and how it compares to his answers, but then I'll also spend some time, like specifically on the interview I did with him towards the end. But for my first article that basically talks about the culture in general, I used a few Wikipedia pages. So the first one I used was Pacific Islanders on Wikipedia, published in 2024, basically just explaining what Pacific Island culture is. So it's three regions, all of which are the umbrella of Pacific Islanders. So it's Polynesia, which is like Hawaii and others, Micronesia, which is Chamorro people and others, and then Melanesia, which is like Fijians and others. So there's many islands and subcultures under Pacific Islanders. Chamorro people are just one subset of the Micronesian people. So in this specific culture and in Pacific Island culture in general, there is like a heavy emphasis on interdependence, and so they call it Inafa Maolek, and that basically means putting the needs of like the tribe, the community ahead of the individual person. They are also very much so like a matriarch system as opposed to like Western culture where it's like a patriarchy. I have noticed this with Jake and his family. His aunt seems to be like that matriarch figure that everybody kind of goes to and is obviously very well respected. Chamorro people are Roman Catholic, but they do have some pre-colonial practices, one of them being like asking ancestors for permission before entering like certain areas of the forest and things like that. Jake has told me some stories where he was growing up and playing in these forests, and they would have to like pray to the ancestors for blessings or permission to play in a certain area, or if they had to like pee like on a tree somewhere, they would like pray to the gods and ask for like forgiveness and stuff like that. There are also some beliefs in like traditional healing methods as opposed to like Western medicine. Jake does mention as he was young, he did go see a witch doctor, which is like a traditional healer. He used to have really bad seizures, and they weren't really getting too far with like the Western doctors, and his dad was against it because he was very religious, but his mom did take him to this witch doctor, and she told him that he had friends, which were, I guess, like the equivalent to like guardian angels, that he had a lot of friends following him. So that's another belief that they have. But on the other hand, they also have the more mischievous spirits that are called duendes, and these are the ones that are thought to like make kids more naughty than others. Like they might have a lot of duendes following them around. The language and food are heavily influenced by Spanish culture, so their numbering system, their alphabet, a lot of the food is heavily influenced by Spanish culture. Customs, a lot of festivals in the Northern Mariana Islands, a lot of which pay like respects to old traditional dances, and things like that. Jake does mention a lot of good memories going to these festivals as a kid. There would be like a lot of vendors, a lot of really good food, and just really good memories. Tourism and everything has really like died out over the years, so he says it's kind of sad to see the way it's like just kind of dead there now and how lively it used to be. As far as stereotypes go with the culture, I found a couple articles, but the best one is a BuzzFeed article, and it's by this Samoan woman who lives in Australia. Her name is Titi Lua, and she just basically goes all over all of the most annoying stereotypes that she hears about Pacific Islanders. And so the worst one, the most negative one that she said is that all Pacific Island women are built like linebackers, which is like so rude and negative. But also things like they're lazy, uneducated if they have an accent. Some of the positive ones that she didn't really necessarily agree with is that they're very humble. She believes that her culture is like very proud and they celebrate their successes, so she didn't really like relate with that, even though it is a positive stereotype. Jake did mention that a lot of these stereotypes he has heard before. He's been stereotyped to be like always happy, which is not obviously the case, but he's also been stereotyped to be very like musically inclined and can sing because he's an Islander, which happens to be true, but it's not like always the truth. So he did agree with a lot of the points that she makes in her article, and he even had like one of his own to contribute. As far as healthcare setting goes with the Pacific Island and Chamorro culture, found an article from Stanford that goes over ethnogeriatrics. So basically just talking about some of the disparities and issues that other cultures might face in a healthcare setting. Non-compliance being one of the biggest ones, just due to either like not having insurance, not having like a ride to the appointments, not having access to the specialists, preferring like traditional healing methods over Western medicine and things like that. So as far as Jake, he is 39 years old. He was born in Saipan. He is a Marine vet. He works in law enforcement. He's been in Vegas for the last 21 years. When I asked him what culture means to him, he said that it's like his sense of identity, how he treats people, the way he grew up, the foods he eats, his family, respect. Again, with the stereotypes, he mentions hearing a lot of negative stereotypes like Islanders are lazy, they have no sense of urgency, the women are masculine, the men are hypermasculine, or machismo is what they call it in their culture. As far as his experience in the healthcare system, he has kind of adapted to like the Western culture more so, having been here so long, but he does say that with his mom, he does notice a lot of issues when it comes to lack of like proper communication. She's not always understanding the doctor entirely. She has a lot of value like in enjoying certain foods and gathering and enjoying these meals with her family, but certain things that they eat can make her conditions kind of go out of control. So that is another way that she ends up being like non-compliant and hasn't really yet found like a middle ground with the doctors and figuring that out. But many of the things that I read about and researched line up a lot with what I have heard from Jake and the stories that he has shared with me, especially like the Spanish influence in Chamorro culture, the food staples, like I've tried a lot of those with his family, the beliefs and practices as far as like the witch doctor, he saw one growing up, and so these traditional healing methods aren't just like things that don't exist, like it actually is things that people believe and practice. So in my opinion, in order to maybe increase the experience and make it better for different cultures, specifically Pacific Islanders in the healthcare setting, I think it would be good if providers like showed more curiosity, maybe made more of an effort to learn about these different cultures, maybe to ask questions, to like Google it, just do some research, or like actually meet people of this culture so they can kind of get a better understanding of how they can treat their patients and how they can like find a level ground with their patients, and so they're not coming from like two different worlds. I think they should also learn about traditional diets, because sometimes, you know, we might be told we have to follow a certain diet due to our conditions, but that might not coincide with that culture like in any way, shape, or form, and so they're just gonna not comply. There's a lot of things I think we can do, but I think that's a good place to start. Also, maybe more access to like interpreters that are specific to subcultures within a culture, so like Chamorro interpreters versus just like a Pacific Islander interpreter. But all in all, I think the biggest takeaway is that Pacific Island culture has many subcultures within it, and they all face their own stereotypes individually. But one of the main important things of the culture is family, respect for elders, and the fact that family has a heavy influence on medical decisions. So I think if we had a better cultural understanding, we can eventually get to better patient care. So yeah, that's as much as I could fit in 10 minutes. I hope I covered everything entirely. Thank you.